pals, I'm here today to review a book I recently loved and adored, and so I wanted to spend a bit more time doing a full review on it because I want to convince you to pick it up, and that is A Crooked Tree by Mannion. So this book is set in the 1980s in rural Pennsylvania, and it opens with a mother driving her 5 children home from school, the youngest being I think 5 years old and the oldest being around 17, 18. And the 3 middle children are bickering in the back seat. The mother's getting more and more annoyed, and it escalates to the point where she pulls over and makes her 11-year-old daughter Ellen get out of the car and walk the rest of the way home. It's a 5-mile walk home. Like I said, it's a very rural area and it's starting to get dark. The siblings then wait at home for hours for Ellen to come home, like fearing that something awful has happened to her, and when she eventually does arrive back, she's very badly bruised and bleeding, and she says that she had decided to hitchhike, and when she decided to hitchhike, the man who picked her up started to touch her inappropriately, and so sort of in fear for her life, when the car was moving, she jumped out. And she describes this man very specifically, this man in his car, to her siblings. And the eldest sibling, Marie, decides to tell a friend of hers who's sort of like a local bad boy. He's an outcast from the local community, and he's a bit older than them. He's sort of 19, early 20s, and he's called Wilson, and she tells him about this man, and he swears to track this man down and sort of seek revenge for what this man did to Ellen. So that's a brilliant opener, I think, and what follows is a summer of building sort of dread and tension as these children and young adults keep what they should definitely be telling the adults in their life a secret and deal with it poorly by themselves. Now, something I think is really interesting about this novel is that this has been marketed, particularly in the US, as somewhat of a thriller. Okay, this is the US cover. I love this cover. I think it's a stronger cover than this one, and arguably I'd walk past this one at a bookshop and I'd definitely stop and have a read about what this one is about. But this cover markets the book as like a sort of thriller noir novel, and I think that's the spin particularly the US publisher has gone with, but to a certain degree the UK publisher, the blurb reads like it's a little bit more about the mystery. And so I read a lot of Goodreads reviews for this where it was getting lower ratings than I thought it deserved, and much of that is because the wrong readers have come to this book. So a lot of readers have picked this book up thinking this is sort of a mystery thriller, and it really isn't. So I'm just going to preface it with that. This is a coming of age novel with elements of a mystery, but predominantly this is a family drama and a coming of age novel. This novel is told in first person perspective from 15-year-old Libby's point of view. She's the middle child, and you get the sense pretty quickly that even without this sort of opening drama of Ellen nearly being abducted, the family already had enough to be getting on with. There's lots of secrets, lies and rumours surrounding this family, and the children are in a situation where things are just getting worse. They believe their mother is having an affair. She leaves the house often in the middle of the night and takes their youngest sibling Beatrice with her. They think that Beatrice is the child of this man she's meeting, and Beatrice was born whilst her parents were still married, so they sort of harbour, particularly Libby harbours a lot of grudges against her mother for the belief that the reason her father was so depressed and left them was because her mother was having this affair. And also a couple of years ago they were informed that their father, who had moved to New York to try and sort of make a living there, had died alone in New York. And so the children are really dealing with the loss of both these parents, right? They've lost their father to death, but equally they've lost their mother to this life that she clearly prefers leading, and she's very much an absentee parent. There's sections in this novel where you see the mother she could be and she wants to be. She's not without her humanity, which I enjoyed. You know, I don't like it when any character is super one-dimensional, and the mother certainly isn't. But as an adult reader, you're reading and thinking, oh, I wish you weren't letting these children down so much. But you can also see where she's coming from as somebody who's raising 5 children alone, and really, you know, they all resent her quite a lot because they sort of hero worship their father. So there's lots of complex dynamics at play within this family. So I thought Libby was the perfect choice as our protagonist because she's very flawed. She's quite naive and innocent for her age, right? She's 15, but she's never been kissed, and there's a lot of sort of adult relationships happening around her that she doesn't really understand, but she thinks she does. And so she's certainly flawed. She makes mistakes in this book. She's very judgmental, and you as a reader dislike her at points for those mistakes, at the same time as understanding that she's young, and she sort of barrels in headfirst sometimes without really understanding the repercussions of her choices. I also really loved reading from her perspective because she has an intense connection with the natural world. Her father was Irish, he moved to the US from Ireland, and he took the children back to Ireland to visit his family, and he desperately missed Ireland and the natural landscape there, and raised his children to be a part of the natural landscape. And Libby in particular found this connection with the forests surrounding their neighbourhood as a way to have this joint love with her father. So the nature writing here is beautiful. The descriptions of everything are spot on. I could picture all the houses, I could picture you know, the roads between these neighbourhoods, but the descriptions in particular of the forests are stunning, and much of this novel is set outside, which is something I really enjoy. So this novel features lots of the sort of tropey coming of age scenes, right? We have first crush, first kiss, drinking by a bonfire, babysitting, summer fairs, but yet all these scenes feel really individual and specific to Libby's story and her siblings' story. All of these scenes are beautifully written. The emotions that are evoked through these scenes are beautiful, and there's a real feeling of nostalgia and regret, and sort of a grasp for a greater understanding of like the human condition and the way people connect and the reasons people do hurtful things to one another. So throughout all of these scenes that perhaps you're like, oh, okay, you know, we're going to get this in a coming of age novel, they feel really particular to Libby's story, which is something I really enjoyed. As I said, this book is set in the 80s, and I love the 80s vibe of this book. I think lots of people would really enjoy this book. It feels very 80s, it also has that very like Americana feel. There are allusions to pop culture that don't feel heavy-handed, you know, they don't feel like it's trying to be rubbed in your face that this book is set in the 80s. It's very subtly done, and I really appreciated it. References to bands and to brands of the time, but also that sort of dark obsession with the Manson family. There's a house locally where people believe some of the Manson women lived in, and whenever Libby has to walk past that house, she runs past it because she's really scared of it, which adds to this like sense of unease and I guess like unsafety in the lives of these children, which I really enjoyed. Another thing that I think makes such a difference to this book is it being set in the 80s, right? I watched an interview with this author in which she said that she has children now, and she said, I'd never let my children have the freedom I had when I was growing up in the 80s, and we had such intense freedom. You know, it was pre mobile phones, so once you were out, you were out. You were just told a certain time to be home, but like if shit happened and you were in an isolated area, like there wasn't really someone you could call and let know, and that really adds to this book. There were so many moments where I was just thinking, if there was a mobile phone, like this would be so different. But she also commented on the fact that that lack of technology, particularly the lack of the internet, would make people who perhaps feel more like outliers feel really isolated because you can't find your people, right? Because there isn't this world that is the internet that allows you to connect with people all over the world. And so this book is like a commentary on the freedom of growing up in that age, but also the isolation of it, which I think is a really interesting commentary. The author herself, like I don't know, I think she was born in Pennsylvania but has since gone back to Ireland, which is where her family's from, and you really got a sense of the love of both of these locations, and I'm so excited to see what she writes in the future and whether she'll decide to set her next book in Ireland. I think that would be really interesting, but you got such a sense that she had a complete love for this landscape that she grew up in, and I just adored it. I think it's just a wonderful book. I loved all the writing, I loved all the characters. I think to have 5 siblings and to make them all feel unique and individual, but not in a way where it's like, okay, you have your thing, you have your thing. They do have different things they like and enjoy, but it isn't just that makes them feel like individuals. They all have very different personalities. You know, you get a sense that some of them are much more understanding or perhaps forgiving or mature than others, and that isn't always based on their age, right? Some of them are just better at understanding certain things, and Libby is certainly, like I said, one of the 5 who perhaps is more judgmental and quick to make snap decisions about a situation without understanding it. So I loved this. So I think if you enjoy slow coming of age novels or slow family dramas with a hint of mystery and darkness, then you should definitely pick this up. The mystery of who tried to abduct Ellen is a thread throughout the whole novel, but it a lot of the time feels more like a thread to do with how tense they feel that summer. Like, what if he finds us? And what if there's repercussions for our decisions? And it's more that than actual like big plot things happening. So yeah, I loved this. I really would love more people to pick it up. I think in particular if you enjoy writers like Liz Moore, so it made me think of The Unseen World by Liz Moore. It also made me think of Idaho by Emily Ruskovich. You know, that's a sort of slow family drama with an element of darkness. I think you'd really enjoy this one. So I'd love to know if you've read it. I'd love to know your thoughts, and yeah, let me know down below if you have read this and you've read other books that you think are like it, that you think I should read. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!